From the time it was first released in 2019, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark brought some of the creepiest nightmares from our childhood to the big screen. Adapted from Alvin Schwartz's popular book series, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark is a collection of short horror stories with haunting illustrations done by Stephen Gammell. These stories were based on various legends, myths, and folklore over the years. For today's list, we'll be going through some of the hellish creatures that terrorized a group of teenagers from Mill Valley, Pennsylvania in the 2019 horror flick. From the unsettling Pale Lady to the creepy Jangly Man, every creature had its own horrifying moment to shine. But who were these monsters really? Where did they come from? And what made them so terrifying? Today we'll go through their origin stories and understand what made them downright treacherous. Buckle up, because it's about to get spooky in here. Before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us, it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. A little about the plot. Directed by Andre Overdahl, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark takes us back to 1968 in the small town of Mill Valley, where a group of teenagers stumbles upon a house they definitely should have left alone. On Halloween night, friends Stella, Augie, Chuck, and newcomer Ramon break into the abandoned Bellows house. Now, the reason they should have left it alone was because the place was surrounded by rumors, but I guess they were feeling the full spirit of Halloween and made the brave decision of venturing in. If that wasn't thrilling enough, they started going through a mysterious book they found inside, which apparently belonged to a girl named Sarah Bellows. Her family locked away poor Sarah because of her albinism and was also charged with witchcraft after a bunch of kids started dying in town. How convenient. Blame the different looking kid. It is alleged that she committed suicide in 1898 in that very basement and thus made the place haunted. Now mind you, this wasn't just any book. It was the one that writes new stories on its own, each bringing a nightmare to life. And just like that, these teens started facing their own personal nightmares, which were straight out of urban legend. The Pale Lady. Okay, so first up on our list is the Pale Lady. If you've read Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, you probably remember her from the short story, The Dream. And let's be honest, she wasn't as terrifying as the rest, but was surely creepy as hell. The story was about a woman who constantly had a recurring nightmare of a pale lady visiting her in the same room and warning her that something bad was about to happen. This goes on to a point where the woman finally gives in and decides to leave the place. This was one of the stories they heavily changed since. In the movie, the Pale Lady is seen haunting a boy instead of a lady. Chuck starts having nightmares about a terrifying woman lurking in a red-lit hospital, and soon realizes that his nightmare has come to life. When Chuck finds himself alone in a hospital, he futilely attempts to run around, looking for an exit. But no matter where he goes, he sees the Pale Lady closing in on him from multiple directions. Unlike other monsters in the movie that move fast or attack aggressively, the Pale Lady is slow and deliberate with her pace. She simply walks forward with a terrifyingly calm demeanor, to the point where Chuck is forced to accept the inevitable truth and gives in. It's one of the most unsettling moments in the film, and it perfectly captures the slow, creeping dread of her original story. Visually, she has to be one of the most faithful adaptations from the book and looks almost identical to Stephen Gammell's illustration, a pale, bloated figure with tiny eyes and a stretched grin. It's that perfect balance of strange and terrifying that makes her so memorable. Her fear factor also doesn't come from sudden violence, but from the nature of inevitability. She's not something you can outrun or fight, and she knows that. That's why she will get you and give you a hug, perhaps the last hug of your life. And that's exactly what makes her so iconic. Sarah Bellows. Alright, now let's talk about the real baddie from Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, Sarah Bellows. Not much is known about Sarah, except that she is the root cause of all the problems. It's something her parents would say, but hey, we're better than that. We know that she wasn't always a monster. If you look closely, you'll notice some eerie parallels to real-life history, especially the hysteria around witches. You see, back in the day, people feared what they didn't understand. If you were slightly different, whether it was the way you looked or what you believed in, there was always a chance you'd be part of the witch trial. And once people started seeing you as a witch, well, good luck proving them otherwise. That's pretty much what happened with Sarah. In the late 1800s, Sarah Bellows was born into the powerful Bellows family, and well, let's just say, she was the victim to the lack of medical knowledge of that era. She was suffering from albinism, which made her have pale skin, white hair, and light-sensitive eyes. Since her family felt embarrassed by her appearance, they kept her locked up in the basement like some shameful secret. The only escape Sarah had was through her stories, which she whispered across the walls to the local kids who came to visit her. It was her way of feeling seen, but things took a sharp turn when the children in the town started dying mysteriously. The people were too naive to search for the real reason and believed the theory made up by the Bellows family that Sarah was a witch, that she was poisoning the children with her witchcraft. Sly move. But why would they do that? Well, they were only looking for a scapegoat, and an already hidden girl with albinism was the perfect person to dump all their problems. In reality, the Bellows family was the one to blame for all the deaths. You see, their paper mill had been dumping mercury into the water for a long time, which poisoned their own town. Sarah knew the truth, and she refused to take the fall, but her family locked her up in an asylum where she was tortured and subjected to electroshock therapy in order to confess. Again, that was another common theme during the witch trials, where the accused were forced to confess their sins of performing witchcraft. The refusal to which would end with them being burned at the stake. Now, Sarah never really confessed, but eventually, after years of torment, she was alleged to have taken her own life, and that should have been the end. But Sarah wasn't done yet. Fast forward to 1968, and Sarah has now become a ghost story. Quite literally. The legend goes that if you sneak into the Bellows mansion and whisper, "Sarah Bellows, tell me a story," she'll write one just for you, but you won't live to tell the tale. When Stella and her friends broke into the house, they made the mistake of touching Sarah's book. To make things worse, Stella, our horror-loving storyteller, decided to take the book home with her kids. Kids, stop lifting things from strange houses. Seriously. That was followed by her friends being hunted down by Sarah's little evils, to the point where Stella had to figure everything out and calm her ghost down. Harold, the Scarecrow. Alright, next on our list is Harold, the sun-baked scarecrow that no one in their right mind would want in their fields. Harold is one of the more memorable monsters in the scary stories. His origins date back to the old European folklore, which has been around for centuries, often tied to spirits or vengeful beings. In many cultures, it is believed that scarecrows could take on a life of their own, either through dark magic or supernatural will. There are stories of scarecrows absorbing the anger of the farmers who made them, coming to life when mistreated, or even being vessels for wandering spirits. In the original Scary Stories book, Harold is actually one of the most famous tales of two farmers, Thomas and Alfred, who created a scarecrow out of sheer boredom and a little bit of cruelty. You see, they disliked their neighboring farmer of the same name and decided to build a scarecrow as an indirect way to disrespect him. They spat on him, threw food his way, and even talked to him like he was real sometimes. But the once lifeless doll of hay had slowly started turning into something weird over time, like when his position shifted when no one was looking, or when his skin started to darken like he was rotting. And then, one day, he stood up. The farmers panicked and ran, but only one made it out. As he escaped and looked back, he saw Harold stretching out a fresh human skin, like he was preparing to make himself even more real on a certain twisted level. Harold's incarnation might also represent the anger of this farmer, who they most likely mistreated. In the movie's variation, we meet Harold as the first creature we see in action, but instead of two cruel farmers, the unfortunate victim is Tommy Milner, the town bully. Tommy has a habit of taking out his frustration every time he passes the scarecrow, even though the fields and Harold belong to Tommy's family. That's no way to treat a doll, especially when your name is written in Sarah Bellows' books. It's almost as if he was just asking to be punished. We see his story unfolding when he stumbles through the cornfield late at night on his way to deliver eggs. He sees the scarecrow, standing lifeless as always, but something feels off this time, and just then, Harold moves. That was it for Tommy. No matter how hard he tried to run, Harold was always there, standing in his way. After Harold stabs him with a pitchfork, Tommy starts coughing and choking on twigs and hay, till his skin starts turning into straw. By the time it's over, Tommy is gone, and in his place stands a new scarecrow, staring blankly into the night. Harold's adaptation reinforces the belief that you turn into the thing you hate the most, like Tommy, who is now forced to be the object he abused for so long. Jangly Man. Now, we'll move to the creepiest one of the lot, the Jangly Man. If you've seen the movie, you already know this guy is a pure nightmare. His twisted body moves in ways that just shouldn't simply even be possible. But I guess what makes him even more interesting is that he's not actually from just one story in the original books. He's a combination of three. Even though his character was created specifically for the movie, his design and presence come from three different tales. The first one is Me, Ty, Dodie Walker, which tells the story of a severed head that falls down a chimney while repeating the phrase, Me, Ty, Dodie Walker. And that is followed by a monstrous body that comes to claim it. Then there's What Do You Come For? A story about a corpse that suddenly drops down from a chimney and starts moving in an unnatural way. That one is pretty similar to how the Jangly Man moves in the film. And finally, there's Aaron Kelly's Bones, the story about a dead man who comes back from his grave and moves in a freakishly loose, broken motion. It would almost feel like his bones have a mind of their own. The filmmakers took little elements from all three of these tales: the disjointed movement, evidence, the reanimated corpse, and the failing body parts. In the movie, the Jangly Man is unleashed to hunt down Ramon Morales. Unlike some of the other monsters, like the Pale Lady, he doesn't believe in slow creeping horror. He'll come for you before you know it. Be assured he won't stalk you from the shadows. This man loves the hard and fast approach. One of the most disturbing parts of his entrance is how he falls apart and then reassembles himself piece by piece. His head rolls in first, then his limbs twist back into place to make your skin crawl. He's also the only creature in the movie that talks like in the book, Meetai Dodie Walker. The Jangly Man's final showdown takes place at the police station, where he is too busy killing the sheriff first, and then snaps back his neck like nothing happened. Now, Ramon was lucky enough to escape thanks to Sarah Bellows. Once Sarah lets go of her vengeance, her monsters disappear, including the Jangly Man. Spiders. So all those with arachnophobia, this next one's gonna stick with you. We're talking about the spiders. Inspired by the story titled The Red Spot in the book, it's the classic troop of spider eggs under your skin that traumatized generations of horror fans. For some of you who don't find them scary enough, we'd like to clear that it wasn't really the one spider that gave us the chills. It was the sheer number of them that made it so terrifying. So here's how it goes. In the book, the story follows a girl named Ruth, who wakes up one morning with this small red bump on her face. At first, she assumes it's just a simple pimple, nothing to worry about. But as the day goes on, the bump starts getting bigger. Her face gets swollen to the point where the bump stretches tight, and the area around it throbs up until it bursts open into the hundreds of baby spiders crawling out of her face. Yep, just imagine that for a second. The worst case scenario for any pimple popper. As it turns out, while she was sleeping, a spider had laid its eggs under her skin, and now those eggs seem to have hatched. This urban legend has been around for a long time, guys. Stories of such things happening have existed for decades, even though real spiders don't actually do that. But that doesn't matter, because the idea alone is terrifying enough to make your skin crawl. It plays on the phenomenon of delusional parasitosis, which is the crazy belief that foreign creatures have infested one's body. The red spot from the books gets adapted as one of Sarah Bellows' terrifying creations and haunts Ruth, Chuck's older sister. In the film, Ruth notices a small blemish on her cheek, just like in the book. But as she picks at it, the skin starts to split, revealing dozens of tiny spiders exploding out of the wound. They all swarm her face in the most disgusting manner, which perfectly captures the nightmare of the original story. The Big Toe Monster. Now, this next creature is straight out of one of the most unsettling stories and scary stories to tell in the dark, the Big Toe. The monster itself is never fully described in the book, but its eerie, disembodied voice and relentless pursuit of its missing toe are more than enough to make it terrifying. Like many of the tales in the series, the Big Toe is based on old folklore, with parallels to legends like Johnny, I Want My Liver Back, where a supernatural entity hunts down someone who stole a part of its body. In the original story, a young boy finds a big toe sticking out of the ground while playing outside. Naturally, instead of leaving it alone because that would be too logical, he pulls it out and takes it home. Later, in a decision that makes absolutely no sense, his family decides to cook it, and as gross as that sounds, they do actually divide it amongst them and eat it for dinner. Later that night, as the boy lay back in bed, he started hearing a raspy voice calling out for his toe. "Where is my toe?" The voice keeps getting closer till the creature finally appears before him and demands back the missing toe. This is usually the part we feel sorry for the victim, but who eats a damn toe? Now, depending on the version, the boy is either dragged away into the night or he narrowly escapes by outsmarting the monster. The movie takes this disturbing premise and brings it to life through Augie, one of the teenagers who messes with Sarah Bellows' book. Back at his place, he discovers a mysterious bowl of stew randomly appearing in his fridge and, against his better judgment, decides to take a spoon of it. I mean, what's up with these teenagers taking things that don't belong to them? Anyway, he surely enough discovers a big toe floating in it, and that is when the monster begins its hunt, moving through the house, whispering in a slow voice. Augie even tried to hide under his bed, but it was not like that was really going to help. None of it mattered. She was already there, waiting to drag him out into the darkness. While the original story left the creature's appearance up to the imagination, the film brings it to life in a grotesque, inhuman form of a woman with twisted limbs and decaying flesh. Interestingly, it was actually played by the actor Javier Batet, who is known for his roles in The Mummy and Slender Man. Now, we don't really know what she wanted, but whether she is seeking revenge or just wants her toe back, one thing is clear: you do not want to be on that list. Marvelous verdict. And that, my friends, is why scary stories to tell in the dark still haunts us to this day. Whether these monsters are stitched together in folklore or brought to life in the film, they stick with us because they tap into our deepest fears. Which of these creatures freaked you out the most? Tell us in the comments so we can make a separate video about them. You can check out our video on the Pale Lady, where we've broken down her origin in depth. As always, stay spooky and stay safe. We'll see you in the next one. And if you liked our content, Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.